5 or 6 people on the phone, and there's 9 of us here. We have a new telephone service. Now we got rid of Time Warner, so hopefully the fading in and out will disappear. Hopefully it will no longer be true that I find all the circuits busy trying to connect to the conference call, so that's half the problem solved. And I have a new telephone on order, which I had hoped would be here, but I assume it will get here during the next week, and then we'll have replaced everything, and maybe it'll clear up, so keep me posted about that. Tonight we're using the speakerphone again, and we'll pass the handset around to people who want to share. The other thing is Dulcie sent out her announcements for the Sarah retreat from December 31st to January 4th. And they're out here by the door, in the rack by the door, for those of you who are here, if you want to pick one up. And if any of you on the telephone want to know about that, the information is at gowithin.org, or you can email me and I'll email you a copy of the registration form. So we're going to go up there on New Year's Eve day and spend 4 days, and I expect it'll be almost entirely in silence, so it should be a really good experience, and I hope many of you will join. So much for the business. So I hope everybody had a lot of fun discovering how many things you're giving your power away to. Or to be more precise, how many things you think you're giving your power to. I want to reiterate that the object of this class is not to stop treating all these things as powers overnight. The idea is not to give up everything, but you won't be able to do that. The idea of this work is to see clearly all the things that you are still instinctively acting as if they had power. We tend to get some very high understandings and have our head in the clouds and our feet are still dragging along in the mud, and we still are acting like all these things have power. And the idea is to begin to see clearly how many things we think have power, because those are the things that are holding us here. And if you can really see clearly that you're giving away your power to it, and if you can really see clearly that it doesn't have power, then it will stop. You don't have to stop it. So I have some more things that we've been giving power to. Adele blessed us with a list of 17 more that she discovered the next day, which I'll share with you. One was good and evil. 2 is money and what it can buy, i.e. power. 3 is exercise. 4 is physical strength. 5 is health. 6, doctors and other health practitioners. 7, she suggested just natural disasters was a better category than earthquakes, hurricanes, etc. 8 is accidents. 9 is genetics. Oh, that's a good one. I love that one. Genetics. How many people think that they've got something because they got the genes from their parents? How many of you think that alcoholism is a genetic disease passed on through the genes?
Levi's.
Huh?
Levi's.
Yeah. So lots of stuff. We all think that genes determine whether we're tall or short, or whether we are going to be fat or die of heart attack, or the insurance companies want to know what the history is of life expectancy in our ancestry. I heard Joel on a tape saying how happy we all are if we have parents that lived into their 90s, but how upset we are if they died when they were 70. So that's a good one. I love that one. Education has power, huh? Does your intelligence or your intellect have power? Okay. Corporations. And we think that freedom has power or bondage. We think that 12 steps and anonymous meetings have power. We hope that transcendence will have power. We think that spiritual teachings or teachers have power, do we? Do we think that technology has power? And then someone else threw in sex, ultimate power, power over people. Do any of you women think your sex has power over us poor men?
I don't know that.
Do any of you men think these women have power?
Blowjobs was on my list.
How do you spell that?
And as in cocaine. And then we also had the sun added.
Yeah.
Does the sun have power? And which has a lot to do with climate that was on the list. And gravity. I guess Jesus showed that gravity didn't have power when he walked on water, huh? And as I took my glasses on so I can read this list, how many of you think that prescription glasses have power? And then I added one more a minute or two ago during the meditation. How many of you think that you have power? Power to stop giving power to these things, power to discipline yourself, power to meditate, power to control your mind, power to stop thinking, power to rise above, power to transcend, power to pray. Yeah, how many? Not to mention all the other personal powers, like power to overcome people or things or stuff like that. But I think the personal I may be the biggest thing that we think has power, or should have power at least, and continually demonstrate that it doesn't. Anybody out in the telephone world or here have anything else to add? Tree.
I thought of one wild animals, like if you're out on a hike or something and
Yeah.
a bear comes up or mountain lion or something.
Or a snake.
That have power.
Poisonous snake.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Wild animals, snakes. What else?
Me?
Yeah.
Yes, Jim.
Uh-huh.
I've been, I want to thank everybody for their help this week because Irene was kind of lost in this power, and I knew exactly what I was doing, but I couldn't lift myself out of it in the meditation.
Did you think you should have power to do that? Did you think you should have power to lift yourself out of it?
Yeah, actually I did.
Yeah, uh-huh. There's one.
Anyway, I kind of focused on that, but it absolutely has given me a perspective just going through this, giving my power to another person, and realizing when I said that last week, I thought that's not right. You know, I don't have power to give to other people, but that's the way it felt anyway. And I accepted the situation is still going on, but I have dealt with it in a totally different way. And the meditations have really been a boost to me. I wrote to you and told you that I felt lifted the next day in a way that I haven't for a long time. And this morning I actually was able to stay awake for the whole 30 minutes for meditation. But it's nice to be in bed and realize that I'm connected with other people who are also meditating. So
Yeah, not a bad deal to hook up without even getting out of bed, is it?
no, not bad at all. Okay, so thank you. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, this is Dulcie. I'm very aware of how much power having children or not having children have with people, and also how the children, even as adults, seem to have power over their parents. And I amazed at how much power parents do give their children, even as adult children.
Yeah. Now I wonder, do the parents think the kids have power, or do they just give it to them without thinking that they have it? I mean, what really has power there is not the kids, but the guilt, right?
Yep. Yep.
But that's a good one. Guilt has power.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess therefore forgiveness must have power, huh? What else? Yeah.
Just looking back over my week, sexual attraction, we already talked about that, the lust. But also, top of my list, the random violence.
Violence.
For me, television, a relationship with my wife and family, and it just came up, lack of discipline, lack of organization, a messy, dusty house has a lot of power over me, and pets,
Pets.
lots of power. I don't have children.
Cool.
If I'm involved, caffeine
Hello?
Yeah, caffeine.
Caffeine, yeah.
and the sun.
My phone's not working.
We hear you.
Oh, you do? It keeps saying, my phone keeps saying it's muted, and then anyway.
Who's that?
The IRS.
The IRS. Yeah.
And I didn't know we didn't have to get out of bed. I'm getting out of bed every morning at 5:30.
Well, if that's what it takes to stay up, to stay awake for a half an hour. I'm not. If I happen to be up, I stay up, but if I happen to be in bed, I stay in bed. Cool.
Astrology.
Yeah. That's a good one. Lots of people think astrology has power.
Only Virgos.
Boy, for a group of people that know there's only one power. And we don't have power to do anything about this, like I said before. Now you understand why I said don't try to give this stuff up. The fact is you can't, because you don't have the power to stop doing this stuff. You don't have the power to decide not to give doctors or medicine or kids or anything power. Your only hope is to pay attention enough to see it clearly. I was talking with somebody earlier this week about the 6th and 7th step. We were talking about seeing things clearly. And my sponsor, Susan, used to say that the 6th and 7th steps are really quite simple. The 6th step is about seeing clearly that the price that a defective character costs you is greater than the payoff. And in becoming entirely willing to give up a defective character means coming to the point where you think the price of it is greater than the payoff, because if you think the payoff is greater than the price, you're not entirely willing. And what she's really saying is that when you see it clearly, the character defect, what it's costing you, what it's not giving you, and such like, it'll stop because you're not stupid, okay? And that's true in all of these. When we truly see the powerlessness of these things, then we stop giving them power. It just stops, I mean, the minute we see it clearly, it stops. So we don't even have the power to try to see it more clearly, but the most reassuring position to take with respect to all this is the one of trying to see clearly what the price of everything is, and the powerlessness of everything. I saw you take a deep breath, Adele. Were you about to say something? Grab the phone.
I'm just wondering what part, just habit or conditioned behavior, even when the belief wears off and there's not a belief in that, it seems like there is a repetition just from purely habit.
Yes, no question about that. huge inertia built up of these behaviors, and it takes having seen clearly that you want to give it up, having seen clearly that it has no power, then you have to be present in order to not do it. If you're not present, the habit will override. That's what Robert was talking about when he talks about you pull the plug out of the wall and the fan still has to spin down. Having seen that, having come to clearly believe that medicine has no power, nonetheless, if you're not present, the default will be to go take an aspirin or something. Having clearly understood that various things don't have power, nonetheless, you'll act as if they do. You'll still, your behavior will still be as if they did, unless you're present. If you're present and you're really clear, then you won't do it. But if you wander back into the personal sense has these habits of doing this stuff and will continue to do it. When I say see this clearly, I mean all the way to the depth of your kids. Because the other thing to say about this is it's really foolish to try to give any of these things up if your kids thinks they have power. Because if your kid thinks they have power, you think they have power, and so you don't see it clearly yet. Seeing it really clearly means your kid's seeing it clearly. Okay? Anybody else have anything on that one? I'm sure we could bring 100 things on this list before we're done.
Machines,
Machines.
which would include cars and airplanes and
Travel.
any kind of machines.
Machines. Anybody else? Yeah.
Yeah, just one thing I forgot. My appearance, how I want to look to others.
Appearance.
Want to look good. A lot of power over me.
Yep. Well, then the next obstacle is not very far away from this, but it's quite related, but it's sort of from the opposite viewpoint. The next obstacle is what things do you think are limiting you? Which is sort of a power thing, but it's a whole different viewpoint. What things do you think in what areas? Not necessarily what things do you think are limiting you, but in what ways? In what areas are you limited? And it may well be things that are limiting you, which of course means that they have power, but it may be that you're just limited, there's no power in it at all. It may be that you think you're limited because you have a finite amount of this or that or the other thing, and it's not enough. Okay? So again, let me come through with a list. I have a list of 23 that have come up to me over the week. Do you think that your intelligence is limited? Do you have an IQ that has a number on it, and do you think that's your limit? Well, my IQ is only 132. I can't make Mensa, so I'm not smart enough to figure that out, okay? The reality is we're one with omniscience. But we're all very convinced that we have a certain finite amount of intelligence and we're not smart enough to figure this out or smart enough to do that. Remember Dulcie when Mary Pat took that job in the bank, 20 years ago or so? This gal Mary Pat, who was a friend of Dulcie and mine, took a job.
She had 0 qualifications.
She had no qualification.
She went right to the top. Yeah.
She took a job in a bank as a VP of loan managing the loan people or something like this, and she had absolutely no qualifications and no financial education and knew nothing about finance and knew nothing about banks and knew nothing about anything, and walked into this bank and trusted that God would provide her with what she needed and moved right up the ladder, So there was an example of somebody who refused to be limited by mere detail that she didn't have the education. And Meg tells that story about the music teacher in the mind tapes. She tells the story about the Christian Science lady that went to teach music and discovered, much to her chagrin, that she was supposed to play the piano, and decided that she would stand on the fact that she was supposed to play the piano, and if God wanted her there, she could, and sat down at the piano and played it. So Meg tells that story. So that's the kind of thing we're talking about. If you can't play the piano right now, it's your mind that's limiting you, because God can play the piano. Okay? So intelligence is one. Knowledge is parallel to that. You lack knowledge to do certain things, or you're not smart enough to give a lecture to a postgraduate class on quantum physics. Do you think you don't have enough knowledge to do that? Do you lack vision? Do you lack the vision to do things or plan great and wonderful things? Are you limited by your lack of vision? Are you limited by your lack of strength? Which was one of the power things, but from the other side now, it's my lack of strength, it's lack of power. Does my lack of strength limit me? Or my lack of talent? Does my lack of talent? Am I not artistic enough or musical enough or whatever to do it? Is my lack of health limiting me? Does my lack of money limit me? Do I not have the money to do things? God, a number of times, I've had the same sponsor for 30 years now. A number of times she just looks at me and giggles and says, God has plenty of money, and I finally got it, but that brings up a interesting point. See, these are all questions about, these are all supply questions too. Let's tie that into anything you think you have a lack of, that's a supply issue, isn't it? And what is the statement is, my grace is your sufficiency in all things always. So thinking that you have any lack is a statement that what is not our sufficiency in all things always. And it also is a self-serving belief or a negative self-serving belief, because if you think you lack something, that's what's in your mind and that's what you're manifesting. So if you believe in any of these lacks, you're on the other side of the supply curve, you're on the unsupply curve, and you're manifesting your insufficiency. If you think you're not smart enough, you'll demonstrate that. If you think you're not talented enough, you'll demonstrate that. If you think you don't have enough money, you won't, because it's what you're believing that's manifested, not what you hope for. Okay? So that's another good reason to be careful. It's not only are these things limiting you from transcendental consciousness, but they're screwing up your human life because they're manifesting. Okay, lack of power in any form. Now, how about lack of friends to get something done? Is your lack of friends preventing you from doing anything? Or on the other side, are your friends preventing you from doing anything? Both friends can be a limitation and lack of friends can be a limitation. Understanding. What's your lack of understanding preventing you from doing? Lack of consciousnness. We're all working on our consciousness. Must mean we all believe we have a lack of consciousness. Everybody who's here flunked that one. How are we doing on a lack of a healing consciousness? Do we all have an infinite healing consciousness? If we don't, it's because we believe we don't. I think several of us may come up short there. How about a lack of time? The source of all stress is the belief that we have a lack of time. First of all, the belief that there is such a thing as time. And then, having convinced ourselves that there is such a thing as time, believing that there's a lack of it. And therefore, shortness of lifespan comes into the deal. I don't have a long enough lifetime to accomplish what I want to accomplish, No sense starting that, I'm going to be dead in 20 years, that kind of a thing. Or don't want to start this company, or, what's the sort of the Greek thing? Discover the guy who, an old man planting a tree, and he said, why are you planting this tree? And the guy says, so we'll have this wonderful tree. And he said, well, you're not going to live that long. And he said, but the tree will, And I live my life as if I'm going to live forever. And Thorber says, that's funny, I live my life as if I'm going to die today, So, does lack of lifespan limit us? How about lack of space? Like a room, elbow room, or space to do things, or space around us? How about lack of eyesight to go with our prescription glasses? We got to start healing prescription glasses. We got to start healing eyesight, Joel says that's a hard one. But Joel said that people, it used to be a real thing. Christian scientists used to really sneer at the Christian scientists that wore glasses. And Joel wore glasses. And his comment was that he could probably heal his eyesight if he took a month and did it. Remember that letter that Bill Chance gave us about spending a year trying to break through the tuberculosis? Well, his thought was that he could probably, if he devoted a month to it, break through on glasses. But of course, there'd be 135 people a day that didn't get healing while he was off on retreat, working on his own eyesight. So that's why he never addressed it. But that would be an interesting thing to address sometime once we start seeing other results. How about languages? The lack of language? Do you go to France and think you're not able to speak French? Do you go to Spain and think you can't speak Spain? Do you think you can't speak to your housekeeper? Do you think you can't go down to the ghetto and speak whatever they speak there? Do you think you don't know all the languages? Because you do. How about location? Are you in the wrong place? Would it all be better if you were on the other side of the fence? Is the grass greener over there? Are your problems limiting you? Well, if I didn't have all these problems, then I could blah, blah, blah. Are you limited by problems? Does the weather or climate limit you? Does disease limit you? Do you have any physical handicaps that are limiting you? So that's the top of my list. Love some feedback. We got quite a bit of time. We got a half an hour to talk if you want to. So feel free to add more things that you think might be limiting you, or we can just open this up to any comments or sharing or questions, or I don't care. Go anywhere you want.
The need to sleep.
Lack of sleep.
Sleep has the power to heal, huh? Put that puppy on both of these pages. What else do we... What else is limiting us? Yes?
I think of myself as being damaged goods, so to speak, and I don't know where that would fall, but it's like I won't be able to overcome whatever happened to me in the past to get where I need to go.
Yeah, that's clearly a limitation. You think you're limited by previous damage. Love to hear from anybody about anything. Well, let's have a nice meditation for a while. If something comes up, jump in, or we'll just sit here in the silence for a few minutes and see what else wants to come up. But feel free to jump in, anybody on the telephone or anybody here, if something, if you're led to. Yeah.
I'm going to This is Jay. This is a little off topic, but a little clarification. If the personal I is the power that I am attempting to shed, or that I'm trying to see, what I really want to get to is my mind, my thinking. And is it, this past week what I've been doing is that I've been working at trying not to think, or creating a space where I'm not thinking. Mm-hmm. And I believe in the past I've heard you say that that's kind of the goal, is that the less I'm thinking, the more I'm able to be present. Okay, and I just wanted to that gets into the whole...
Yeah, I don't know if it's a goal, but it certainly is the truth.
Yeah,
if you're thinking you're not present.
Okay.
Yeah,
So if I'm not using the personal I mind, then I am omnipresent.
Yeah, then you're not thinking.
Thanks.
Yeah, if you can... That's why it's called transcendence. It can't be a doing of the personal sense that accomplishes it, because any doing of the personal I is locking himself into the personal I, okay? Mm-hmm. The idea that the doing in itself is the ultimate obstacle. Although we can't not do. Don't immediately decide to not do, because that's also a doing.
Doing, yeah.
But it requires transcending, and it's as simple as I have to step backwards. It's not doing something about it. It's just stepping back out of it, or stepping back above it. And that's that step. Step isn't the right word, of course, but I don't know what else to say, but that step is what we learn by practicing the awareness exercise and stuff like that. I mean, being aware of the presence of I is that step. So the awareness exercise will teach you how to take that step.
Thank you.
Another thing that's important is don't take possession of the thoughts. We make a terrible mistake. We'll talk about cause and effect in a whole separate topic one day, but we all believe very strongly that everything has a cause. Okay? And therefore we think that all the actions that this body does, that the cause of those actions is the me, the personal sense, because there's no other source of action that I can see around here. If I raise my right hand, it has to be I that did that. I, Lee, personal sense that did that, because there's nobody else around here that can do that, right? Similarly, these thoughts, these that I think are personal thoughts, I think I'm thinking them because I'm conditioned to believe that somebody has to be thinking them, or there wouldn't be thoughts, right? there has to be a cause for those thoughts, and there's no other cause around here that I can see except me. So I think that I'm thinking those thoughts, okay? And that's an error. That's an error. Because there is no I to think. I mean, the I that I think is thinking those thoughts is an effect, not a cause. He's grabbing for the phone. Yeah.
So the receiver or the transmitter, being the personal sense of J, many of the thoughts that are going through this receiver are nothing but the world consciousness, or the 6 billion other things, and some of them are just being refracted through this.
That's just what's happening. I mean, there's no difference between Lee thoughts and world consciousness thoughts. I mean, they're just thoughts. And if I start putting labels on them, I mean, yeah, I know we have all those labels, but we're at a different level now. And if I start putting labels on them, that's the Lee brain labeling. Okay? Consciousness doesn't label. I mean, the I that I am is not going to label things or discriminate between things or stuff like that. It's Lee that does this labeling and such like. And so, yeah. So these thoughts of labeling and discriminating are again the same mistake. See, I think they're Lee thoughts. But Lee is an effect, not a thought, so Lee can't think. So Lee can't be the one that's labeling them or discriminating between things. It's just a happening. Okay? And it's not happening to Lee. The thoughts are happening, and the form, Lee form is a happening, and everything else is a happening, and none of them are any different from anything else. And there's no one here who could be thinking them. You know, it's all effect. Lee is an effect, and the thoughts that we think Lee thinks is an effect. And it's all exactly horizontal, same level, same power effect. And none of it's a cause. And if you see that clearly, then you, in quotes, then there will be an abandonment of the effort to think or not think.
I have a question.
Yes.
An effect of what?
An effect of what is.
Not world mind.
No. World mind is also an effect. And it's not an effect of what is, it's just what is. For there to be an effect and a cause, there has to be time, and what is outside of time. So it's just what is. It just is.
Okay.
If you say so.
Along that line, I've often thought about what a funny title the power of now is.
Yeah.
Because there really isn't any power to it. There's really nothing but now.
That's right.
Unless I'm in my head, and so that's kind of a funny name. Also, I was thinking about how much power we give silence. If we get in the silence, then the healing happens, or the power of meditation, the power of silence, when really there's no power in it at all. But I think we give it. I know I've been guilty of giving silence a lot of power.
We're hoping that it'll have it, huh?
Being in silence as opposed to not being in silence, as if that was a higher transcendence to position when really there isn't anything else but that anyway.
Right,
But I've certainly given it power.
yeah. You bet. I hadn't thought about that name, about the power of now, but yeah. Yeah, there's no power. Joel gets pretty clear about that. He talks about one power, but then he immediately backs it up with no power.
No power.
Once you realize there's only one power, then you are suddenly confronted with no power. Because what could the one power possibly be used against if there were such a thing, you know? And the other question is, application of power requires time. It's done. Whatever that means.
Yep.
Yep. But good, thank you for that. That also brings Hawkins' power versus force to mind, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, Cynthia.
That's all, yeah.
Okay. Well, let's see. Along the lines of like what you just said, don't. I think you said don't believe your thought, or yeah, don't think that it's me thinking the thoughts.
Right.
And it kind of brought up something that came up for me today, and I kind of reached out because I had this appearance, and it kind of doesn't surprise me that it's come up because I have entertained this thought. Like I feel like it's it's come up for me before, like the suggestion, and I recognize it as a suggestion. And I'm like, that's interesting. And so I actually went Monday for a routine mammogram, which I've debated whether to even do that kind of stuff. You know, the whole, you're looking for something, you're going to find it. But, I've done it the past few years, or, whatever, they started recommending it. And, but I feel like there's a lot of radiation that I've picked up on as far as, the appearance of, breast cancer that I'm hearing about. A friend of ours, his, wife just had, and I'm hearing about it from Dennis, and I'm hearing about it on the news because several, people in the public eye, and so, or what, I don't even watch the news, but somehow I'm still, I don't know if I see it on the internet, or the pictures on the newsstand, and so I've let that enter, and so.
You don't even have to see it anywhere.
That's true, yeah.
Just the fact that you're in the midst of the 6 billion and you're of the right age and the right sex, and to have that, to have that be a concern of many women who are at your age, and et cetera, makes you susceptible. You have to be explicitly not believing it.
Right, and I guess a part of me is like, oh, that's, it like knows better, but I've like felt that little fear, like I have that, and also because of all the, I think probably puts me into that, the things I've read because of all the fertility things I've done, the hormones, and more susceptible or whatever, that's been in my, mind. So anyways, I had this routine mammogram, and they called me today, and I was like totally got caught off guard, like, who is this? What do you want? Like, and basically they were calling to bring me back in because something didn't look, basically they wanted to do more x-rays. And I was like, well, why would you want to do that? And questioning it. And I felt that little, like I wasn't surprised, because I have, like even going in there, I thought, I just had the sense that, that I wasn't in the right mindset about it, I guess. And so, and I saw my head just immediately go to like trying to come up with all these pictures of what that was going to look like and how that was going to manifest. And I was like, well, this is interesting. Part of me can watch it, and the other part of me, like the fear came up, and of like, why would I be called back? All the questions that come up. And, so anyways, that's why I thought I would try to nip it on the bud by reaching out to kind of get, because part of me knows it's an appearance. It's that mental suggestion saying, here I am, you can run with it if you want to. So
Absolutely.
anyways, I'm going to try to start being better. I set my alarm every day at 5:30, but I haven't been very good about staying awake the whole time either. But I think it would be good at this point, or any time, to kind of get in, make a point of that. So.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, it doesn't hurt at all to join us at 5:30 in the morning, because there is a healing consciousness at that time. I can feel the consciousness, we're getting something going. And you don't need to specifically ask for help. Just being in that consciousness will give you help if you're available to it, because nobody is directing the help at the people who ask for help, or maybe they are, but I'm certainly not. You know, we don't direct help to people. Joel says we forget the client and the problem as quickly as we can. I said this last week, but a few people heard it. The game is that we try to lift ourselves high enough that those who are tuned in with us will be lifted up above the problem, above their hypnosis of problem, okay? There is no power in the silence, Jess. What there is clarity in the silence, which has no power. What there is the clarity of seeing clearly that there was nothing that needed to be seen, that needed to be healed. So there really isn't a power in going into the silence. What there is a realization that there is no need for power. And that's what the healing work is about, as I see it today, is trying to lift ourselves to the altitude that we lift people who are reaching out to us, that they get lifted up by our altitude, which is certainly a phenomenon that appears to happen. And if they get lifted high enough, then the problem is dissolved because it was never there. That's the game. So tune in, by all means.
There's a great line of Jesus's is, if I be lifted up, all men will be drawn unto me.
Absolutely. Yep, that's the whole point. And that's the power of the guru, and the grace of the guru is the same thing. You know, you hang out with the guru and you get lifted. You know, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to say anything or ask anything. Just hang out with the guru and you get lifted up. You know. Do I sound like I believe gurus have power?
Only on Wednesdays.
Only in humanhood. And by the way, all these things do have power in the relative world, in the human world. If you're human, then these things do have power. So make sure you know who you are before you start ignoring them.
Me again. So I've been under the illusion that by being here and working on my consciousness, that somehow I am transcending or being different from the 6 billion. What I heard tonight is that J is just part of the 6 billion as long as there is a J.
Well, I don't know what that means.
Okay.
I mean, the 6 billion is way too generic, but the idea that you're doing something is certainly questionable.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we're here because that's the way the story is unfolding. Just like there are thoughts in your heads, the fact that you're sitting here, I mean, the story is that we're all trying to achieve transcendental consciousness, but the fact is we all already have it, and there's this silly storyline going on. That seems to be what this whole spiritual gymnasium is about, is this silly storyline. We're all playing that game, and this is where we're sitting tonight. And this is what it looks like, and it's part of the story, and it may be that the story goes that because you're sitting here tonight, you'll have a moment of clarity and transcend 100 lifetimes worth of stuff. That may be what the story looks like, but it certainly is not the sitting here tonight that caused the transcendence to happen. What it is that the effect is that you're sitting here tonight and the transcendence happened, and they're both once again are with the effect. Yeah, nothing's happening here. I think we should stop there. No, we can go on for a while. It's not 8:30 yet, even if anybody else has anything. I don't want to completely run the whole class away. Yes, 3.
Let's see, so I guess what we're saying is that spiritual classes might have power, or we might think that they have power.
Yeah, we think they do. We think we go to these classes, we'll get lifted.
But what I was thinking of earlier when you were listing the limitations, I think, I just want to talk about this because I'm not sure what's going on, that I have a limitation. I think that children limit me. I think I have that belief, but at the same time, like if I want to just take off on a retreat this weekend, I can't because I have children at home. I have this belief, but actually I am going on a retreat this weekend, but my husband's watching them. So it's not a limitation, but if there's a weekend when my husband's not home, I can't just go away on a retreat. So, I mean, I guess I believe that they limit me, but at the same time, you
Be
gotta
very
be
clear.
responsible.
Be very clear. Do you believe they limit you or a tree?
Tree.
Okay. That's not what we're talking about. I mean, yeah, we're talking about the things we think that limit tree, but the reality is that, you know, I mean, the IQ limits tree. If you think you're that human person, then genes limit tree and such like, but if you know who you are, then there is no, then you have no IQ and you have no genes and you have no children and you have no, etc.
Not there yet.
You need to be on retreat.
If you need to go on the retreat and you know who you are, somebody will show up and say, hey, can I take your kids this weekend? We're going to East Jesus, Arkansas. We'd love to take your kids, and we have them for a week. You say, oh yeah, okay, I don't mind going to this retreat. That's how it would work. Or there would be some such story would happen that would appear to solve it. If you knew who you were and were supposed to be on the retreat, then the story wouldn't. Notice I said supposed to go on the retreat. Because if you knew who you were, you wouldn't have a desire to go on the retreat. The tree's the one that wants to go on the retreat, not you. But if you knew who you were and you were supposed to go on the retreat, then the story that included your going to the retreat would also include the necessary steps for you to be able to go there without damaging the children. Or not.
Nah.
Let's cook for a while. It's really cooking in here right now.
I just want to say one thing.
Speak up, Bridget.
I just want to say that for me, practicing this week, that as all the teaching brought me up to this moment where I actually find myself having to practice by making the conscious act of withdrawing I have to look at it just as a whole, because when you start to put it out one by one by one, I mean, it's infinite of what I give power to, and then I feel very, it's like almost like I'm not going to, I guess I just feel like it's never ending, and I don't want to believe that it's never ending.
Sure. Yeah, once again, I mean, you can play this game at lots of different levels. You can, every time you find yourself giving power to something, remember who you are, and then see if you can act like who you are rather than the one who is giving power to it. Or you can just make a note that, oh, well, I'm giving this power, and just see it clearly and see what the result of that is. Lots of different ways to play the game, but if you're present enough to notice that you're acting as if something had a power, then you're present enough to perhaps behave differently. And I understand that all of this talk is couched as if you had the option of behaving differently, but the fact is that if you see that you're about to act as if aspirin had power or flu shots had power, then you can decide, given that awareness, oh, I'm about to go get a flu shot, I'm about to act as if flu shots had power. Being aware of that may change your behavior. It will seem as if, we will think that having the thought that flu shots don't have power, I decided to not do it this time and decided to stand on principle and all this stuff, and that I have the power to do all this. The thought process will be as if we did that, but the reality may be that just remembering that flu shots have no power may be the thought that happens just prior to not getting a flu shot, even though they're both effect, and the thought is not the cause of the effect. Was that confusing enough?
No, this week it just became clear that of the two minds, the Christ mind and the human mind, and wherever my eye is operating in this moment, if I can see it clearly, then I just accept it at the moment, and it's about this practice that I'm basically reprogramming my intellect. So I think it's just a matter of the practice, and
that's
not
right.
Stress out too much about any of it.
No, there's no stressing out about anything. That's exactly right. The game is the game, and I do mean game. The game is to know where your consciousness is residing at a given moment. See it. Oh, I'm being human. Oh, I'm in transcendental consciousness. Oh, I'm being human. Oh, that's the game. And it looks like a practice. We always call it a practice. Thank you.
And it can be really fun.
It can. If you want to play with it, then it's, this could be the greatest source of laughs in your entire life. If you really get a look at who you are and what you're giving power to, it can get pretty funny. Given the deep spiritual wisdom that we all have assimilated, then we see these really silly things we're doing, it can be pretty funny. If you're not laughing at yourself, you're missing at least 90% of the laughs.
Yeah.
Laughing with yourself. Be gentle to your kids. see how limited you are. Hope I see you next week. I love you all. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Night, Bells.
Thanks.